to get that good look. So, next to having toys, it's important to have a lot of reference material because, these toys aren't good reference. So there's our buddy Han. He's chilling in Jabba's palace. Ho, 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 ho. You think to yourself, how can I make this look like this? That's going to be hard. Right? God, it's going to be hard. But we look at here and we say, let's look at some of this detail. Some of this detail is not reproduced in the toy, so it's not going to be easy to get. But we can see that it's very metallic. It's Tibian gas mixed with carbonite. So, those volatile chemicals, when cooled, produce a nice coffee table. At least I think that's what Boba Fett wanted. Nice coffee table. Anyways, we look at this and we can see there's a lot of detail in the movie version that we won't be able to get out of this. But we can see that there's a lot of deep scars in serrations, and those are full of blacks, and lots of highlights that are full of silvers, and it's very metallic looking as opposed to this, which is very plasticky looking. So how do we achieve this look? First, black. Why black, you ask? Black is going to allow us to get a nice even coat where we take this plasticky sheen away, because we really don't need this plasticky sheen. We're not going to use it. And, we can also take it up a notch and use a larger brush. The cool thing about acrylics, and what you'll need a lot of, is water. You can tell there's no water in there. I'm going to get some water, and I'll be right back. Water. So, what do you use the water for, you're asking? First thing you want to do is get your brush in there and get it loosened up some. So, acrylic, like I said, acrylic is a water-based paint. So, too much water will oversaturate the pigment, and you'll get thin, washed-out color. And no water will apply basically what you get out of the bottle. But a little bit of water on your brush will help the paint wick up into the bristles and apply better. Now, one of the biggest things you want to do before you start painting on plastic is wash it with hot, soapy, extra soapy, as much soapiness as you can get water. And you want to take a cloth or a sponge, something with some bristles, like a cleansing pad, not abrasive, not super abrasive, but just lightly abrasive. And you want to keep it away from any kind of clear plastics. But you want to get the soap in there, and you want to work the soap into all the crevices and all the stuff. And the reason behind that is because when this plastic comes out of the factory, it comes out of a mold. And just like when you cast resin parts, there's a mold release agent. That mold release agent is like a grease, a greasy film that gets sprayed inside of the mold. The plastic is then hot injected into it, and then when it cools, the molds pop open. And to keep it from sticking, this mold release agent allows it to come free from the mold. However, paint, as you can imagine, does not stick well to a mold release agent. So hot soapy water will take that mold release agent off, because it's on there from the factory. It's on there at your Toys R Us. It's on there at your toy store. It's on there under your Christmas tree. It's on there when you rip open that package. It's on there for forever. Even if you bite it, it's still there. So washing it really good takes that release agent off, and you'll tell it might go from like a, you might notice it goes from a like a shinier kind of finish to a duller finish, and you'll feel like it doesn't feel as maybe greasy, and then you know you've done good. Anyways, the good thing about Paint 2 is you don't have to use a lot of it. So I have two here. I have this water, and that's to clean your brush. And then I have this little thing here, and usually I use these just to put in. You know what these are? These are Yo Crunch yogurt tops. So my kids eat a lot of yogurt, and these have those chocolate chips in it. They come from the Yo Play, blah blah. You pop them off. They make great little paint holders. So usually, the great thing I love about this Vallejo Paint 2 is it comes in this container with this little applicator top. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You don't have to keep like, you know, the entire pot open. And when you're talking about paint bottles, we often refer to them as pots. So you don't have to keep your pot open, and you know the paint, air and paint. What happens, people? It dries. So dab it in, get a little in, and then do this, and then start painting. You're thinking to yourself like, oh my God, Spotty, you're just painting him all black. My God, what's going to happen to him? Why would you do such a thing? Han Solo's not black. Yes, he's not black. That is true. As you see, like, you know, we had like, what, six drops of paint in there? Maybe, total. And we've already covered more than half of good old Han. So there we go, like this. We go cover this in. We're not going to worry about, you know, the watching the edges, because we're going to go back and we're going to touch all this stuff up after with much better results than what dyed plastic could look like. The hardest part here is we got to wait for some of this stuff to dry. So while it dries, you get to listen to me. Alright, so we're just painting. We're really not caring about, like, you know, we're not saying like, oh, you gotta paint perfect every time. The great thing about customizing is you're gonna go back over stuff a lot, you know, especially if you want it to be perfect. And that takes us to, you know, one of the things, like, what do you do with customized toys? Well, there's basically a few different things you can do with customized toys. You can keep them for your own fancy. Like, when I say like, oh, I love customized toys, I keep it for my own fancy. I have maybe you have a giant bookcase with a bunch of your stuff in it. And I'm not saying all that's customized, but, you know, you want to show it off to your friends. Your friends come over and you're like, oh, is that blah, blah, blah from the comics that has never actually ever been made? And you're like, yes, why, that is Yasmin Israd from the comics X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Or Rogue Squadron. And I didn't even know that figure was made by Hasbro. And you go, they didn't make it yet. And then, you know, 5 years later, they can make a version, and you're like, oh, that version sucked. I'll post a link in the description below after the video processes and all that, with a link to my, I think, my Picasa page that has a bunch of my customized toys, as well as links to rebelscum.com. They have a nice customizing forum, and my all-time favorite, imperialshipyards.net. Yes, Tamer, I'm looking out for you. And that place is an amazing resource. The guys that post on that forum, they're there to help. They're there to mentor, to teach. They're there to critique. You know, they're there to bounce ideas off of and brainstorm and say, like, I want to build this. What do you guys think? Has anyone ever built this? What were some of the problems you had with it? So a good thing too, when you're painting, is to change the direction that you're painting, because sometimes you think, oh, I've painted them all, but then you realize, like, oh, there's a fold of skin or a shirt and I didn't see this angle and I missed it. And as you can see, we're not painting the sides just yet because I think in the picture the sides were different. This has some stickers. Stickers. I recommend that if you're going to paint and stickers are there, you go through the extra 10 or 20 minutes of hassle and take those stickers off and get some Gooby Gone and get in there with a Q-tip and really just get those stickers out and clean them out really good, because adhesive and paint are horrible partners. But because tonight is just about kind of painting technique, we're not going to worry about the sides so much. We'll paint a little bit, just for the fun of it. And I'll have to look at the picture again and see if Hans Carbonite is a different color on the side. We're going to get in here. We're going to leave the insides of these gray. So we're just going to kind of, and at some point, you realize, like, hey, Spotter, you're using a pretty huge brush. Why such a huge brush? Well, we're trying to do the stuff for time. And, we don't have a lot of time. We have about another 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. We've got a lot of space to cover. A lot of space. All right, so we're getting in there, and we're getting that detail. So, back to, what do you do with customs? Like I said, sometimes you keep them. Another thing you do is sometimes you do commission work. After you've gotten really good at customs, people might look at you and say, like, you're really good at what you do. I would love to have such and such. And that kind of work is rewarding. It means that, I guess it means to some of us, like, what you're doing is appreciated and is recognized, because, this is an art form, not really recognized, and sometimes it's nice, you might post a custom to a forum and someone would be like, that's really great. And you take that feedback and you go, you know what, I think I'm doing a good job. But a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this too, forums are full of people that everyone gets a trophy. And sometimes you're looking for real feedback. Am I doing this? That's basically the tiers of customizing. First start off doing it because you're interested and you want to see what it's like, and then at some point you're like, maybe I can make $1 or $2 from this if I try it. So maybe you get some commission work, or maybe you get to the point where you're beyond commission work and you just start customizing and placing things, these toys up on eBay as true customs. And I've done a little bit of that. I'm guilty. Call it part of the ego, or call it keeping the hobby alive, because you spend you can spend a lot of money on this hobby if you try. Hasbro does not make these toys cheaply. To buy a decent 6-inch black figure can be $19, $20, $25. If you don't get it, if it's a hot item, you don't get it at the store, the Toys R Us that week, you might have to go to eBay and you might have to pay $25 or $30 for a figure. So like I said, it can get expensive. So there we go. We're getting the black in there. It's still a little wet around his fingers. That's okay. So then you dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it. And basically a little bit of water, and this brush is clean. You get in there, and I usually would have some paper towels, but I only have the tissue paper right now, so we'll work on that later. A good thing to clean your brushes with is hot soapy water. Hot soapy water is your friend. It's an amazing, amazing friend. And pretty much makes everything amazing. We have a little bit of, still a little bit of wet paint. You can see the kind of the sheen, the glare there. It's okay. Another great thing about acrylic paints is, it may harden and dry in here, but a little bit of hot soapy water and a little bit of thumb action with a paper towel, and it cleans right out. That's what's cool about it. So, think to yourself, Spada, you've painted Han Solo all black. He looks like a tasty Hershey bar. What will you do next? How will you get that look and feel? Silver, my friend. Silver. But we're not just going to paint him silver again, because that would be silly. So what we're going to do is a dry brush. Now, what's a dry brush? A dry brush is basically getting paint on your brush, wiping off as much paint as you can into a tissue or paper towel, and then sweeping it back and forth across the piece and picking a direction. You can go left to right first and then up and down. Be careful because your direction will influence the way the highlight comes out. And basically what you're doing is, your brush is lightly going back and forth, and it's picking up on the tops, the ridges and peaks of the piece, and the paint is being deposited on these ridges and peaks. It's not getting down in the crevices and the ridge, the canyons and things like that. It's getting caught up in the peaks, and that's bringing out a contrast in the piece. When you fake metal, it's good to have a lot of silver, and but you just don't want to dry brush it, because that would be like 10 minutes worth of work. You're done. Yay, customized, finished. But after we do the dry brush, we'll go back and we'll do a wash, and the wash will come back and add in that like black greasy sludge that was in those recesses and those scratches, those divots in the carbonite that you can't get, or that you might not be able to get with a dry brush. And basically what a wash is, it's just what it is. It's a little bit of water mixed with the paint so that it's much more fluid, and you wash it on kind of right on there. And then two techniques are, you either put it on there and you let it dry, and as the water evaporates, the pigment will concentrate, because the surface tension of the water will not remain kind of all over the piece, but will pull in with the water as it evaporates, and it will get down in that crevice, and then it'll dry when that water completely evaporates. So you'll really get the edges and the deep crevices will really pop with this darker pigment inside, with this lighter pigment on side. The other thing you do is you can put it on real good, then you come back with a tissue and kind of blot it or rub in one direction. No, not the band, the tissue. And you'll pick the pigment off of that area, but it'll still be down in those crevices. So the big thing you want to do is take your paper towel, and you want to switch out paint buckets. You want to take a break. All right, we're going to take a break for a second. You can see I have my sweet chillin' Star Wars cup. Star Wars. And for all you kids out there, I'm drinking soda tonight. Soda. I'm sticking with that. All right. He's still not dry in his hands. So the other important thing, and we're doing this because we're pressed for time, is you want to let your paint dry thoroughly before you go into the next step, because that paint really needs to adhere. If we were just to start painting right now without this paint kind of drying a little bit, then as we push the brush across, it's just going to lift right up, and we're going to have that nasty plasticky look underneath. So we're just going to hope to God that it dries a little bit faster. Sometimes you might want to use a heat gun. I have a heat gun in the garage. Sometimes I pop that out. I'm like, for bigger pieces. We're going to set Han aside for a second. Wait over there, Han. And we'll look at, I mentioned before that I like to customize vehicles. If I didn't mention that already, maybe I did. I like to customize vehicles, and the bigger the vehicle, the more the fun. So I haven't done an AT-AT yet, but I have done an ATTE, or all-terrain something, an ATTE for the Clone Wars, before the AT-AT came out. I draw a blank sometimes. I'm old, leave me alone. I'm working on that, and we might be able to spotlight a little bit of that later on. I've painted the legs. They look amazing. That's about as far as I get because the body on that thing is huge. It's like, I don't know, 17, 8 inches long and like 7, 8 inches tall. There's a lot of work in there, but the legs aren't so bad. The other one is that I love. One of my first customs I ever did was a Clone Wars gunship. That was a great piece. The first time I customized it, I had no clue what I was doing. None. Like, I have no clue. I painted a model once when I was a kid. A battleship. I can do this. And looking back at it now, when I see pictures of that gunship, I think to myself, wow, that was bad. There's literally no customization there. I kind of ran a brush across it, and I said, I'm done, yeah, look at me. At the time, though, it was amazing. I felt great. It felt like I had chiseled, David out of a piece of marble, and I was then going to go on to do the Sistine Chapel over again. And instead of, God and thing with the fingers, I was going to do like, I don't know, Itchy and Scratchy and a bunch of Simpson stuff. But it was amazing. It was great. Fast forward several years later, and I'm like, I've learned so much. Let me redo this. And so I redid it. And at that point, I took it apart and I, really stripped the old paint off and totally cleaned it. And then I repainted it with a base coat and went back and I did water slide decals, and I even put LED lights in the damn thing. And, it came out amazing. It's right over here. I'm going to get it, and I'm going to show you to real briefly, but we'll highlight it later. There's also some video on YouTube I'll link to show you the lights and all that stuff, because I don't want to plug it in because it'll probably crash my camera or something. But here it is. Let me see it. So there's this. You can see this is totally customized. And huge. Mostly huge. Let's see if we can get up in here. So you can see it's been totally repainted. I've added decals, water slide decals on the side. There's a sweet little blue Twi'lek saying she's the Lucky Dooku. And there's some clone pilots in there that are not customized, they're just there. I've also got this cool little, you see a little base in there. There's a gun that slides down on that, and it rotates and like kind of spins out and looks cool. And this summer, or the summer before, I got brand new gun pods for the side. That when you see the movie, those little clone troopers sit in those glass pods that sit on the outside. I got those. I'm going to paint those to match and attach those. And then, like I said, the thing is fully lit up on the inside. So, like when troopers are in there, there's a red LED that comes on, and like it looks cool. And that's it. I also added, to customize it some. You can see I've added these little wing fin pieces and some extra guns. And of course there's a little satellite dishy on the top thing there. And those are all cool things. Like the little winglets on the side, they came from a Spider-Man Green Goblin sled that my son had that he no longer wanted, so I took it apart, and I never told him. Sorry, Matt. And so I took it apart and I epoxied it to the base and repainted it. So it came out great. See, is Han dry yet? No, he's not dry yet. Come on, Han. Dry your tears. Really, I'm not blowing on Han. Not blowing Han. No. Not doing it. Sorry, I had to see that.